Well, welcome to the first of our interviews with organizers, Twestival calls. I'm Mark Pittman, Mark A. Pittman on Twitter, and I'm interviewing Stephanie Montroy. She's on the team that's working with the Ottawa Twestival, and we're excited to have you on the call here, Stephanie. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Happy to be a part of it.
Congratulations. You've chosen your charity, which I think is wonderful. Would you be able to tell us briefly what the charity is and what led you to choose it?
Yes, so we're going to be working with the Royal Ottawa Hospital Foundation for Mental Health. And, we just thought it was one of those charities that's kind of orphan and doesn't really have anybody representing it yet. So that's why we chose it. Most of the team members have actually have been touched by mental health issues. So
Mm,
it meant something to all of us, which I think makes for a very committed organizing committee. So that's
definitely.
how we decided on the charity.
Well, that's wonderful because not only is your community behind it or engaged, but it's also your team has a personal stake in it. That's really cool. Good for you.
Exactly.
So now the big question is, now what? You've got the charity. Now what do you do?
Yes, exactly. So we had lots of discussions around how much money we wanted to raise, and a lot of figures were sort of thrown around. And eventually, we sort of decided that it was more about the event itself, and getting the word out and having people talk about the charity than a certain dollar amount. We've all agreed that what's important to us is to have a very successful event,
Mm.
so that next year there is another festival.
Tell me about the goal. What was it? You mentioned you referred to that. Can you be a little bit more specific about dollar amounts?
Well, let's just say we've reduced our target goal by about a quarter of it. So we're trying to be realistic. We've also sort of adjusted a little bit our strategy in terms of how we'd like to raise money. I think it's easier to get sponsor dollars once you have an established event, which is what we're hoping to do this year. We all are very connected and have lots of friends that we can sort of go and approach to say, do you want to spend $25, $30, $35 to come to this great event?
Right.
But it's harder to go to sponsors and say, would you like to sponsor $5,000 for this great cause?
Well, I
Yeah,
think the
we're hoping.
takeaways from that, I like what you're saying is you had the enthusiasm of one member and clearly the emotions of the community behind this organization. So that enthusiasm and starting a very high goal of what you wanted to raise, and then you took that and said, well, what's sustainable? We want to have an ongoing event. And I think that shows a lot of wisdom. So you brought it down to a quarter of what the original goal was. That's helpful. And then I like that you're thinking about sponsors in the future. That's really smart too.
Yeah, just having a great event, getting a lot of buzz around it. We've been throwing out the date at all of our Twitter followers for a few weeks now, so everybody's well
Good.
aware that March 24th there's going to be a great event in Ottawa, and I believe we can safely call it the biggest tweet up in Ottawa. So that's
Oh,
a
that's
nice
fun.
little bit of yeah.
Oh, the last thing I want to know is how do you work with this charity? Did you guys have relationships with it before? How are you establishing as a team that doesn't work at the place
Yeah.
to fundraise for them in a way that protects their brand, protects your brand, and makes it a win for everybody?
Yes. So as a team, we've had a discussion as to how we want to approach the public because you're right. There are personal brands to protect, and also we have to work within the guidelines of Twestival. So that was a discussion that we had as a team. How do we want to approach this, and how do we respond to inquiries, and what if people are making negative comments and whatnot? And we've sort of made a conscious decision that our tone was going to be positive and upbeat and honest. As far as the charity itself goes, they were extremely receptive. When we gave them a phone call to say we'd love to do this event and we'd like for you to be the charity that receives the funds, they were ecstatic, obviously. We sort of had the presence of mind to create Twitter, a Facebook, and a YouTube channel with Twestival Ot, which is the handle that we're going by.
Nice.
So yeah, so they've been very generous in welcoming us to their facility. And what we're going to do is we're going to go and talk to some of the stakeholders that are either providing some of the services or receiving some of the services that the charity provides to see how it really impacts them. So from a personal perspective, I think, you can connect a lot better when it's someone that's directly touched by a charity. So that's the approach that we're taking.
Wonderful. Stephanie, thank you so much for being our first interview with an organizer.
Oh, well, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Bye now.